Hi and welcome to 1 and 2. We decided today to look at why our teachers are special.
Something special about Mrs. Foote. She always listens to our ideas and she's always generous to us.
Something special about Mrs. Foote. She's very funny because she tells really good jokes.
Something special about Mrs. Love is because she teaches us math, and now I can learn how to do math with her.
And I know where she lives.
Mrs. Osborne's special because she teaches us the time, and it's important to know the time so we don't get to class late.
Mrs. Osborne is special because I like the way she laughs.
What's special about Mrs. Stevens is that when my brother was in kinder, he was in Mrs. Stevens' class, and then I was in Mrs. Stevens' class, and then my sister was in Mrs. Stevens' class.
Mrs. Stevens was special because on the last day, we always get to go under the sprinkler.
I think Mrs. Taylor is special because she bears herself, she's really kind, and she's really welcoming to the class.
I think Mrs. Taylor's special because she helps me with my maths and she's really, really kind. I think Miss Flynn is really nice because she is really caring and funny, and I really like how she smiles and dresses, and I really like her.
I like Miss Flynn because she tells funny jokes and she smiles at me and she's really nice. Mrs. Zegfeld is special because she helps us play music and she's very good at music. Mrs. Zegfeld is special because she helps us at music and she's kind and funny. Mrs. Morgan is special because when my mum, Mrs. Carr, worked in 3-4, she used to ask me if I wanted a lolly, and I thought that was really special. I think Mrs. Morgan's special because she tells funny jokes to people.
I think Mrs. Chug is special because she brings all her animals into school.
I think Mrs. Chug is special because she tells funny jokes.
Something special about Miss Nichols is that she does really fun maths.
And that she's really funny.
Something special about Mrs. Carr is she's a funny teacher. Something about Mrs. Carr because she always makes me smile. Something special about our art teacher, Mrs. Edwards, is that she makes really cool art. Something special about our art teacher, Mrs. Edwards, is that she makes us make really cool art. Something about our kinder teacher, Mrs. Edwards, is that she does a sticker chart, and if you complete it, you get 2 things from a prize box. And something else about Mrs. Edwards, the kinder teacher, she has a beautiful personality, and she welcomes you very nicely, and she always has a beautiful smile on her face. Something special about Miss McLaughlin is that she does fun activities with our buddies.
Something else that's really special about Mrs. McLaughlin is that she is very kind to all of us.
Something special about Mrs. Rooney is that she's really caring and lovely.
Something else special about Mrs. Rooney is that she looks very good.
Something special about Mrs. Johns is she's a teacher and she's also awesome at hockey, and she's very kind.
She's very nice. She's a good team supporter. She's kind. Something special about Miss Thomas is that she lets us keep her books and borrow them.
Something special about Miss Thomas is that that when we don't bring our books, she lets us borrow them, even when we have too much at home.
Mrs. Cornish teaches people how to do piano.
Mrs. Cornish makes sure all the teachers are behaving good.
There's lots of things that I love about Mrs. Wheeler, but most of all I love her cuddles, because sometimes when we're sad she'll just give us a cuddle and it makes me feel so much better.
There's lots of things good about Mrs. Wheeler, but I like that she teaches us fractions.
Something special about Mrs. Sharapel is when I was in her class, she did great initially and she said everything clearly, and that's what I love about Mrs. Sharapel.
When I was in Mrs. Sharapel's class, she got this toy pet, Fluffy the lamb, and I really liked it.
I love all the things that Mrs. Kidd does. Here are some things that I like about Mrs. Kidd. So when I just started in initial at 2, she looked after me and she helped me do all my work, and I like how she's intelligent.
Something I like about Mrs. Kidd is that she's really fun and she's very good at teaching initially.
Things I love about Mr. Davey. This is one thing I love about Mr. Davey. He's the teacher of my buddy. He wins lots of medals for our school.
I love Miss O'Neill because she helps me with my paragraphs and writing. My highlights about Mrs. O'Neill is she helps me with my writing and she builds my confidence, and every time I see her she puts a smile on my face. I like Mr. Stacey because he helps us with PE.
I like Mr. Stacey because he helps us do any sport.
Sensei Lockett helps us learn different languages.
She has really cool hair and nails. Something special about Mrs. Hodgetts is that she is so kind.
She has a big voice and she's the boss of McKillop.
Something cool about Mr. Douglas is he plays the guitar really cool and he knows a lot of songs and he has very cool tats.
And that he's the boss of the school.